welcome back to Theme Deck Tuesday, and in this week's video we're going to be having another look at the Towering Heights theme deck, a fighting type deck featuring Groudon and Garchomp and a bunch of other awesome fighting type Pokemon. This did feature in my top 10 theme decks video, which I'll leave a link for in the description so that you can check it out after this video, as we will be getting straight into the gameplay, showing off how to play this deck and the effectiveness of it. So if you are new here, be sure to subscribe, as I do post videos multiple times a week, and give the video a like if you do enjoy it at any point. Getting into our first game here, we're up against the good old Relentless Flame Charizard deck. Very strong deck, as we all know, but if you're not familiar, it does have the Charizard as the main attacker, and it does have a bunch of excellent supporting Pokemon, so I'm sure we'll be able to power through those and try and get some quick knockouts in the early game here, so that my opponent isn't able to get set up, because they do take quite a bit of setup in their deck. They have two different stage 2 Pokemon that they need to get set up, and they also have the Rapidash, which is an excellent stage 1 Pokemon, but looks like they have absolutely nothing here. They just immediately pass over to us. We're going to be benching our Groudon and go for the Pokemon Fan Club to search out two of our basic Pokemon, and then we'll go for the Tympole as well as the Gibble, both Pokemon that we need down as quickly as possible so we can get set up here. Also going to be attaching the Fighting onto Pissimian so we can actually use our attack, dealing 20 damage and then drawing 2 cards. Of course, both of them are going to be energy cards, but that's alright, as we do have the draw energy in our hand, as well as the Gabite in order to evolve here. My opponent is going for a Timer Ball, unfortunately getting a double Tails for them. That is going to be good for us though, since that gives us some time to get our board set up. We'll attach the draw energy. We do draw into another Fighting. Nothing else that we can really do here to accelerate our win condition, so we just have to attack once again for 20 damage. If we have a look at the Tympole, it does deal 10 damage, but it is reliant on coin flips, so we could potentially have got the knockout with a Tympole, but we could also have missed the knockout, so I would much rather just rely on our Pissimian here in order to continue to draw some cards with the excellent attack that we have, Spike Draw, allowing us to draw 2 every single turn, and this is one of the few attacks where we're drawing cards and also dealing damage. And you do see other Pokemon similar to this, like the Farfetch'd in my opponent's deck. They haven't played it down just yet, but the Farfetch'd in their deck allows them to draw 2 cards, but it deals 0 damage, so we definitely have a much better Pokemon to attack with there. We do get another Pokemon, but nothing else too much going on in our hand. We're just attaching energy and Spike Draw once again. Getting very close to the knockout here, and we do get to draw 2 more cards, which is good. I might consider putting down this Mew just so that we have the option of using the Psy Power here. This would actually be quite good in order to set some knockups or knockouts up, and that would mean that we're in a good spot. But honestly, just drawing cards seems pretty reasonable overall, especially since my opponent doesn't have any way of making our hand any smaller, so continuing to draw cards is going to be beneficial for us. We do get another Fighting energy we can attach onto our Groudon. That seems reasonable to me, and we'll just go for a Spike Draw. The only other cards we can play as a switch, or the Mew of course, so we'll just attack, get our knockout, and draw 2 cards, so we're getting a total of 3 cards here. Getting a massive hand to work with, despite halving of it being energy cards, and then we do also get a supporter card. Lady here finds it even more energy, but it does help thin the deck out, so we will get some better draws as well. My opponent gets the Ponyta here. It's all powered up and ready to go, as well as a Nestball grabbing them another Charmander. That is going to be a copycat though, so they can't make our hand any smaller, but they can certainly make their hand a lot bigger. That is the only downside to drawing a lot of cards, as we've been doing here, as my opponent now has a rather large hand as well, and they have the Agility Rapidash. Flipping a coin gets heads. That means we can't deal any damage to them on this turn. Very unfortunate, as we would really like to be dealing that 20 damage every turn here. We'll put down another Gibble. That certainly helps us out. don't really have anything else, so I suppose we'll put a Palpitoad down since we have it. Can always work towards the Seismitoad if we wish. And we'll go for the lady. Like I said, thinning the hand, or thinning the deck, putting energy into the hand. Do have a lot of energy, but it's going to help us out in the long term. Now, this Groudon does deal 130, and we cannot use the attack next turn. It does have a Colorless in the attack, which is what I was looking for there. Allows us to attach the Colorless energy there, which also draws us a card. Seems good to me. We also have a Pokemon communication we can use at some point if we would need it, but I think we'll hold on to it just for now, and we'll draw 2 cards with our Spike Draw. Since we can't deal any damage to our opponent, we're just looking to stall for a couple of turns, and as soon as they get a Tails on the agility, then we'll be able to go in and take a knockout on this Rapidash, most likely with the Groudon that we have here, as it will be able to get a one-hit knockout, and we do have a couple of switches as well. My opponent looking to build up their board there, since they did draw a lot of cards the previous turn with Copycat. I'm guessing they do have a few evolutions, or at least cards to get them towards evolutions that they can work with, and they won't want to use anything like a Cynthia, as that will give them a smaller hand. Now my opponent does get another heads on the attack here with Rapidash, which is a little unfortunate. Now we don't have a lot of other good options that we can go in with. Suppose we could start using Groudon and attaching some of these energies. That's the only other option that we have available right now. So we'll go ahead and evolve into a Gibble, and then we can also use our Pokemon communication in order to put some of these Pokemon back into the deck, like the Mew for example. Then we can grab out something like the Throw here, could be a good option. I do kind of like that, and also getting a Timple so we can use Palpitoad could be good as well. We don't really have a lot because the Seismitoad does deal damage based on the damage counters on our board already, so really we need a Timple down. That is going to be helping us out quite a bit. And we do have the Seismitoad though, that is also going to be good for getting us any card that we need. We have a Pokemon fan club once again, that's going to grab us 2 basics. We'll get ourselves a Gibble as well as a Throw. I suppose we could also get a second Groudon, that could be good here. So I'll actually take another Groudon and we can power it up with our current active Groudon. We'll be attaching an energy. I'll attach it onto the Groudon, that seems reasonable. And then we can use our Seismitoad here in order to search our deck for any card of our choosing. And we get to put it onto the top of our deck. So we'll grab a Garchomp so that we have another solid attacker that we can make use of. And we'll just use our Groudon here. The first attack allows us to attach energies from our hand onto our Pokemon. So we'll select 2 of our energies, and we'll be attaching it onto the bench Groudon here. So we now have a plethora of attackers that we can make use of. And my opponent just needs to flip a Tails. That will allow us to actually get an attack off here and take a knockout on this Rapidash. As you can see, this is where the deck really shines. Once you have a couple of turns to get set up and everything runs smoothly, then you should have plenty of different attackers that you can make use of. And there's another head from my opponent. That is a bit of a shame, as we don't have any way of actually getting through that. We just have to wait until my opponent flips a Tails. So we could always go and get something like a Palpitoad, that would help out. We do have 130 HP, so my opponent will have to not knock us out next turn. They're going to take 3 turns to knock us out, which is good for us. We can use our Groudon a little bit more. And I'll go for the Seismitoad play, put another card on top of our deck. This time we'll grab the Palpitoad, like I mentioned. We want that in play for sure. I also want to attach onto our Garchomp, and we'll once again attach some energies, this time going onto the Seismitoad so we can get that powered up as an attacker. Now, my opponent won't be able to knock us out unless they use a different Pokemon, which is totally fine by me. And they don't have a Charizard set up just yet, but I'm guessing that would be the main way of trying to get a knockout here. Now they do have another energy coming onto the Ponyta, so they're looking to get a second Rapidash set up at some point, but they finally get a Tails. That is going to give us the opening that we need here in order to finally take a knockout on this Rapidash. We do have the switch, so we can keep these energies in play, and we also get the energy attachment down. I will go for the Cynthia here, just so we can see a selection of other cards that we can make use of. Okay, not too terrible. We do have a bunch of supporter cards that we can make use of, so we can now use the Seismitoad, get that throw back into our hand. Sure, we do have Pokemon Communication, but I do just like having the throw available rather than having to search for it. And of course, we'll get the attack off with our Groudon, and finally take our second prize card. We do pick up another energy, and it's going to be on my opponent to find the second Rapidash that they need here in order to use agility once again, but even if they do that, it is going to be very slow for them, as they'll have to try and attack 3 times in order to knock out our Groudon. Of course, this is a theme format, so there is very few decks that have Boss's Orders or Pokemon Catcher, anything of that nature, which is going to bring up our bench Pokemon, so I don't feel too bad about our heavily damaged Groudon being on the bench here. Now we do have to use a switching card, however, because we're not able to use that attack again since we did use it last turn. That is the only downside. Also, we can't use our Palpitoad. Our Palpitoad does deal 10 damage to each of our own bench Pokemon, so that would knock out our own Groudon. Certainly not ideal there. But we could also go in with something like the Seismitoad, which is probably what we're going to go for here. I think that seems like a good option, and we do have plenty of other Seismitoad available if we need it. So we'll play our Tatanlisa, then we can use this to switch one of our Pokemon, go in with the Palpitoad, or Seismitoad I should say here, and we can also just hold the rest of this hand. We've not used our ability just yet, so we can use that, and we can search out. I'm guessing probably just going to be energy here. We really do need energy attachments every single turn, regardless of the fact that we have a lot in play already. And we can get a knockout on this Ponyta, dealing 140 damage. Since of course we do already have those damage counters on the bench here on our 2 Groudons, that is going to be increasing the damage that our Seismitoad is dealing. So 140 damage is pretty reasonable, and it's going to be knocking out the majority of my opponent's board here, especially since they don't have any stage 2 Pokemon in play just yet. A Pokemon Fan Club is not going to get them there. That's just going to get them some more basics, which certainly could help if they want to draw some cards. Getting a Farfetch'd would have been good, but instead they are getting a Ponyta and a Charmander, so just looking to set up some more stage 1 and stage 2 Pokemon instead. Also haven't been able to find any Nidoqueen on their end, which is really what helps my opponent to build up the Pokemon that they need. We do have an energy here. Going to attach that onto our Palpitoad on the bench, and we do have a bug catcher as well, but I'm going to be using that after our ability so we can immediately get the card into our hand. And I think switch is always a nice card to have just in case we get damage and we want to switch out. So I'm going to put switch on the top of our deck here and use a bug catcher to draw into it. Unfortunately only drawing 2 cards, but that's alright as we don't really need anything else. And of course our deck is getting pretty thin at this point. We'll just attack our opponent, getting a knockout on that Charmeleon. Bit unusual that they did promote the Charmeleon and allow us to knock it out very easily, as that is their main way to get the Charizard. Of course, that is the main attacker of their deck, so they certainly could have promoted another Pokemon. One of the Nidorans there certainly could have been a better choice for us to knock out, and could have given them the option to have a Charizard in play instead and try and get some energy to deal some damage and get a knockout on us. But even in doing that, we have so many attackers available to us at this point, it's very unlikely that my opponent is going to be able to withstand our attacks. This is exactly why I enjoy playing this deck. It's super fun once you get set up. It is just that initial stage, but that is really what happens with any theme deck. If you're not able to get set up with your strategy, then you're going to lose pretty quickly. But In this situation, we have done very well to get all of our energy on the board and even get some damage on the board as well for our Seismitoad to deal the full amount of damage it possibly can. We even get our second Garchomp off of the prize card, so that is going to be excellent in having us a, a fifth attacker now. The only thing that we don't have powered up is our Palpitoad, as we can get another Seismitoad in play if we get enough energy for it. So let's continue to attach energy, or put energy to the top so that we can attach it, and just ensure that we have those in play. And we'll just once again go for an attack. There is the concession from my opponent. They knew there was no way that they were going to win that game, so we do get a concession from them and a nice easy victory with all of our energy and attackers in play. Let's get into another one and hope that it is as successful as that one. Getting into this game, it looks like we're up against the Zamazenta deck, which is going to be an interesting matchup. Very much a similar deck to us, where we're both trying to build up some very powerful attackers which require a lot of energy in order to attack, although some of them not quite as much energy as others, but for the most part we both have very high energy attack cost Pokemon which are going to be dealing a significant amount of damage. Now we'll have to see who gets their strategy set up first. My opponent goes in with an early 10 damage attack. Very difficult for us to deal with that, but I'm sure we'll be okay here. We do have a Pokemon fan club, of course, that we can make use of to grab some more Pokemon out of the deck. I'll be getting a Gibble as well as another Timple here, just in case the current one gets knocked out, and of course because Palpitoad is just a generally good attacker overall. I'll also be attaching another Draw Energy here, which is great as we do pick up the Pokemon Communication. Unfortunately, we don't have the energy in order to attack with the Palpitoad, so we'll just attack with the Timple for now, and it does actually pay off. We get a nice 20 damage in, which is going to put us in a nice even footing with our opponent. And of course we can always use our Palpitoad on the benched Timple that we went ahead and got there, so we're in a nice spot overall. My opponent actually gets 3 tails, so they're not dealing any damage to us whatsoever this turn, and that is great for us as we can use our communication in order to search out our Palpitoad and start dealing a bunch of damage. So down comes our Palpitoad. We'll also get the fighting energy on there, and we don't have any other evolutions that we can use, so I'll just use Cynthia, shuffle our hand back into the deck, and hope that we do get some useful evolutions. We don't get it, but we do get some more Pokemon. That's great, because then our Palpitoad is going to be dealing bench damage across each of these, and with that, that's going to be increasing the damage that Throw can do here, as it is increased if we have damage on our bench Pokemon. Also picking up that Pissimian is super nice, as that's going to help out our consistency and also just deal that little bit of extra damage that we need in order to finish off some Pokemon. My opponent is going to be getting the knockout here though. Dealing 100 damage is enough to get a knockout on a stage 1 Pokemon here, especially our little Palpitoad. And if they want to, they can move energy, but looks like they're keeping it all on the active in order to ensure that they can get another attack off this turn. We'll go in with our Pissimian for now, and I could potentially attach to it, but I think we will start attaching onto the Throw so that we can get another attack off. And I'll also use our Cynthia. Looking at it, I mean, I could have also promoted the Timple if I wanted to, but I think trying to build up another Palpitoad is going to be more beneficial overall. And we do also get into a Gabite, which is very good, as we can hopefully try and get the Garchomp in the next couple of turns here. So even if we go behind on prizes, that Garchomp is really going to save us and give us an excellent way of making a comeback in this match if we need it. My opponent does get the Hop, which is going to draw them 3 cards. They did also bench another Pokemon here, so they're just looking to build up their board as much as we are. They get to get another energy down, which is crucial in Theme Deck format, of course. And they naturally take the knockout, dealing 100 damage to take care of our Pissimian. We are going to be promoting the Throw here. My opponent knows it, so they are going to be moving all of the energy off of the active and putting it onto the Zamazenta here, which can deal a massive 120 damage for 3 energy. Now we are going to be promoting the throw, and we'll have to hope that we get a Garchomp for when my opponent inevitably promotes the Zamazenta here. We do get a How to draw 3 cards, but doesn't look like we're going to be getting a Garchomp anytime soon. We'll just go for the knockout here. 120 is all we need, and we'll take a prize card. We do get part of a Garchomp at the very least. A Gibble is the start of one, and with that Gabite in our hand, we can certainly make use of those. But fingers crossed we can get a Garchomp off of the top deck or from this Lily, but we're not going to be drawing a lot of cards from the Lily, unfortunately. My opponent can get a knockout with the Zamazenta here. 120 is more than enough, but flipping a coin, if tails, then during this next turn this Pokemon can attack. So let's see what my opponent gets here. They get heads, so they are able to attack us for 120 again on this coming turn. Definitely a tough spot for us to be in, and I think we will be promoting the Temple here, as our other attackers are going to be good for us. So we want to be trying to buy ourselves a couple of turns if possible here. Attaching energy onto the Groudon just in case we can try and make use of that. Lily for 1, not going to be super helpful, only getting an energy card, so looks like my opponent has been able to secure themselves the game in this situation, as they're so far ahead at this point. I'm not sure we're going to be able to make a comeback, even with the excellent comeback mechanics of our Groudon. If we're not able to find the Groudon, then we're not going to be able to make use of it, and that is not going to be any help at all. Now my opponent is just shoring up any defenses and any weaknesses that they may have, so it looks like they need energy, so they grab themselves some more basic energies here. Definitely going to help to ensure that they have an attachment in return. Always something that you need to keep in mind when you're playing this format. And they really have nothing else that they need here, like I mentioned, but looks like they are just going for a 30 damage, so not unless I misread, but no, if tails, this Pokemon can't attack, so they could have just knocked us out there, but instead looks like they're going for a slow game and giving us an extra turn. Maybe they're just being nice as well, that could also be an option, and at least gives us another turn of attaching onto Groudon. We can Lily here for a couple of extra cards. We get a switch, but it's not going to be super helpful as we don't have a good attacker at the moment. We need another turn in order to power up our Groudon, or we need to try and draw into our Garchomp, as I've mentioned. My opponent will be getting a knockout on this following turn, I have to imagine. Even dealing 30 damage is going to be enough on the Temple here, which does have 60 HP. So 30 is all they need in order to knock that out. And also the Zamazenta is reducing damage by 20, so our Groudon actually won't be able to get a knockout here now that I think about it. Dealing that 30 damage and getting a knockout with Temple this way means that they are reducing that damage, so 130 on our Groudon goes down to 110, and means that we are going to be missing a knockout, but luckily for us, 120 damage on my opponent also means that they are going to be missing a knockout on our Groudon. We do draw into another energy that is not going to be any use to us. We don't need any more energies in this hand, but we do have an attack at the very least. So a couple of turns of not attacking to finally get an attack off which doesn't knock out our opponent. Always feels bad, but hey, at least my opponent is also playing a slow game, and they don't have any hugely pressuring attacks here other than these Zamazenta, which are building up and looking pretty terrifying. They go for the big attack here, 120 damage. Now they do get a heads once again, so they can attack us again, but we have nothing going on here really. The Gabite does have a 1 retreat cost, so at the very least I can attach an energy switch and retreat. So let's go for that. We'll attach onto our bench here. We'll retreat, discarding the fighting energy since we do have a bunch of those in our hand already. And we can at the very least get a knockout on the Zamazenta here to get another prize card, hoping that it's going to be something useful, but I highly doubt it. It is a supporter card, so we can at least shuffle our hand into our deck with the Tate and Leasley here. My opponent promoting the Duraludon. since they only need to deal 10 damage, the Duraludon is going to be able to get a knockout with that first attack, as well as also attaching a basic energy from their discard pile to one of their Pokemon, which means that they can get even more attackers powered up. And this is certainly the downside to playing this deck. Sometimes you do really well, like in the first match we had earlier, and you draw everything you need, you get everything set up, and then other situations like this where we're not able to draw anything and we're not able to get set up, which is just how it goes sometimes in Theme Deck format, and that is just part of the fun of it, as well as all of the decks are fairly evenly balanced, I must say. We do manage to top deck a Garchomp off of the Tate and Lisa, so at the very least we do have an attack and we are dealing a significant amount of damage, but sadly we're not going to be able to do anything against our opponent as they do only have one prize card remaining. But let's show off to my opponent, deal a massive 200 damage, because why not? We do have the energy in hand already and felt like showing off. My opponent is giving us a sketch kind of face, but I'm sure they're just going to be fine here. They do have a Corviknight coming up, and imagine, yep, here's the Corviknight, going to be dealing 130 damage, and if they discard energy they can also reduce damage, which is going to be able to save their Corviknight and make it extremely difficult for us to do anything. And yeah, there goes the energy. Reducing damage by 100 in this format just makes it impossible for us to deal any damage to our opponent right now. Even doing 200 damage is not going to be enough to get a knockout. We do have a couple extra Pokemon here, but yeah, as I mentioned, we don't have any good stuff going on now. We'll discard another fighting energy here, deal our damage. Oh, apparently it's even more damage, 130 damage reduction is because they're resistant to fighting. Of course, because it's a flying type. Flying types are resistant to fighting, and with these sword and shield cards it is minus 30, so massive 130 damage reduction despite attacking for 200 damage. And my opponent is still able to close out the game, but nothing else that we could have done there, unfortunately. But that's just the way it goes sometimes, and at least we had a very nice first match against that Charizard deck, showing off the power of the deck and how easily we can get set up when the deck decides that it wants to work. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and another look at the Towering Heights deck. Certainly a good one to play, and very glad that I chose to put it into the top 10. So if you've not checked out that video or the initial review of this deck, I'll leave those in the description as I mentioned, and I'll see you in the next one.